This is my October International Update, October 2007. I feel the last few days, even weeks, I've been spending most of my time in board meetings. Last week I was at a very fascinating board meeting, the board meeting of IBS STL. For those of you who know the history, STL grew up within OM and then we set it free a number of years ago, and under the direction of Keith Danby, it's grown very, very significantly. And last year we had this wonderful merger between IBS and STL. And we are looking at ways in which IBS, STL and OM can work even closer together around the world. As we work on that, it's going to mean hundreds and hundreds of thousands of more scriptures being made available to the peoples of the world. So I'd request prayer for us as we work on that relationship, and particularly for Keith Danby. He's got a very horrendous schedule at present. He's in his first 6 months of leading IBS STL. He's trying to really understand the work in over 40 countries, so he's spending a lot of time on aeroplanes, a lot of time separated from his wife and family, and I'd really appreciate your prayers for him. I went straight from there, almost straight from there, to the board meeting of OM Ships in Mosbach, Germany. Wonderful things happening in the ship ministry at the present time. Logos Hope has finally come back from the shipyard to OM Ships, and we're very grateful for your prayers, which has finally led to that taking place. She won't leave Tregear for some weeks yet. The crew that we got together for the voyage a number of months ago, some of them have had to return home with all the delays. So we're getting the crew back together. There's still small bits and pieces of work to do, but in the next few weeks we'll sail Logos Hope round to Kiel in northern Germany. There's been some confusion as to which port Logos Hope would move to, but that's definitely now the case. It will be Kiel in North Germany. Logos 2 has already arrived there, and the people will transfer from there when Logos Hope arrives. The big news, of course, for OM Ships in the last few weeks is that we definitely have to replace MV Doulos in 2010. The time will come when she can no longer sail. So we've had to do some quick thinking on our feet. We were going to scrap Logos 2, but we're committed to maintain OM Ships as a two-ship ministry. So we're now probably going to lay up Logos 2 for a year or two, and when Doulos has to be put out of commission, we'll recommission Logos 2 for a few years possibly, while we raise the finances to replace MV Doulos. There's not complete agreement on the way forward in all these things at the present time within OM Ships, so I would ask your prayers that we'll be able to really discern God's way forward with some of these big decisions, and we'll get real unity amongst the executive leadership team of OM Ships and with the board of OM Ships. So thanks for your prayers for both IBS, STL and for Operation Mobilization Ship Ministry. A number of key personnel changes are taking place in OM at the present time. Just before being with IBS STL, I was down in Uruguay, meeting the board there and our field leader for more than 16 years, Siegfried Klassen. We've recently bought a very large plot of land in Uruguay, and we have a growing ministry there, and we feel that Siegfried should concentrate his time and energy now on building up that project. It's called Eagle's Wings. And therefore we need to find a new field leader. And we committed ourselves to seek to find a replacement for Siegfried by the end of the year. So that's a very specific prayer request, that God will lead us to the person of his choice to take the work forward in Uruguay. On the 15th of September, a change took place in Austria when Philipp Eschbach took over as our field leader, releasing Frank Hinkelmann to be our new central Europe Area Coordinator. He'll start that role on the 1st of January 2008. So your prayers please for Philip as he gets his feet under the table in Austria, and for Frank as he prepares to take over the leadership of OM Central Europe. Change has also taken place 1st of October in Denmark. Andrew Berghammer has taken over as our leader there. Please pray for him and for the very small team there as they seek to take the work forward in Denmark. And then the end of this month, the end of September, after 18 years of leadership, Pedro Arbalat will stand down from his leadership of OM Spain. He'll take some time out, a sabbatical, and then he will continue with a international preaching, teaching, training ministry in the Spanish-speaking world. Meanwhile, we've invited David Greenley to be interim field leader for 1 year in Spain. So I'd appreciate your prayers for this transition and for David and the board of OM Spain as they seek the leader long-term to take Spain into the next stage of its development. Please do pray for Pedro and Antonia. They've done wonderful things over the last 18 years in taking the field forward. Pray for them in this transition. Now let me tell you some of the ministry that's been going on around the OM world. In Russia, a team from USA joined 18 members of the Good News Church there and 26 non-Christians for a week-long family camp. During the week, the American Christians taught English 3 hours a day. There was time for games together, a carnival one afternoon, evening meetings each night on the theme of friendship, and that was always followed by discussions on spiritual issues. The team was amazed at how quickly everyone bonded. Team leader Keith Haywood gave this report. One man went to the Orthodox Church when he got home to repent and promised God that he would stop drinking, smoking and cursing. Another lady was visibly moved by the gospel and by the love shown to her by the team members. The team felt she was very, very close to the kingdom. All of the unbelievers at the camp want to continue meeting and reading the Bible together. On the other side, Keith commented that the team were greatly impacted. For a few, it was their first overseas mission trip, and everyone wanted to do more. Moving across from Russia to Norway, together with a number of other missions, OM has hosted 4 prayer meetings for the Muslim world during the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan. They did that with the hope that more local people would start building relationships with their Muslim neighbours. Over 3,000 teens and leaders eventually came together for Teen Street in Germany this past summer. Under the title Contagious, they studied the life of Nehemiah, and they discovered together how they can be contagious teenagers as they love Christ and as they reflect him in their world amongst their friends. On the final day, all Teen Street participants, imagine this if you can, more than 3,000 teenagers, went into the city of Oldenburg to demonstrate the love of Jesus. They handed out water bottles reflecting the water of life. They ran an art exhibition. They wrote Bible verses on the ground using pavement chalks. They challenged local people to swap something for a copy of the Bible. One report said, came from OM Austria, over 60 Austrian teams came back totally thrilled with many new experiences. I'd love you to pray for these teens. Now back in their home situation, the excitement of the big event is behind them. Pray that what God did in their lives really will be established in the days and months to come. 25 artists from 9 countries were recently in Albania, using their talents to celebrate and share the love of God. For 2 weeks, each artist on the team, and when I say artists, I mean painters, photographers, musicians, performers, dancers, they found their way onto the local streets, went into the local parks, did workshops, concerts, and so on. One group went to a children's hospital where they painted a colourful mural on the bare walls of the entrance hall. One team member said, "It was delightful to see the fearful eyes of the children light up as they came in and saw the bright colours." 3 team members prayed with children and their parents, leaving behind gifts of sweets, art cards, Bible stories, and gospel tracts. One team member said, "In one room, the father was an obvious skeptic who nevertheless gave his permission to pray. But by the end, he had tears in his eyes." One team member said it was beautiful to go room to room, watch fear and oppression give way to peace, see eyes light up, smiles replace frowns, and colours come back into the cheeks of the children. Here in the UK, where I'm recording this update, teams have been working with Turning Point, building bridges of friendship with people from all over the world on the streets of London, including the Middle East and North Africa. Through email and the internet, these relationships continue to grow and develop. In 8 weeks of outreach, participants talked with hundreds of people, distributing over 11,000 pieces of gospel literature and DVDs. I was able to share the gospel with a lady who had never heard about Jesus in her life before, one team member commented. She was glad to receive a New Testament and also took away a Jesus video. If you think back over what I've reported on so far, you can see some of the key focus areas of our work with Operation Mobilization. Here's some of our key focus areas that I've mentioned. Our ship ministry, that's a key focus area. Our youth ministry, next generation, that's a key focus area. You've probably noticed that I've been speaking about Europe, definitely a key focus area. And then we've been speaking about pioneering initiatives, another key focus area. Taking the gospel, for example, into Albania, using new methods, new ways, pioneering initiatives, another key focus area of our ministry. Let me take you to one more key focus area, an absolutely fundamental area of our ministry in OM, and that's the land of India, where, of course, as you know, we are seeing incredibly wonderful things taking place. Joseph D'Souza, our Executive Director in India, also one of my Associate International Coordinators, was with me at the IBS STL board, and he was updating me about some of the things happening in that country. I asked him just to give me a couple of paragraphs, and this is what he wrote. "We continue to see tremendous growth in the Good Shepherd Community Church movement, in the numbers of churches, the quality of the pastors, and the strength of faith of the new believers. In 2007, we will see at least 200 new churches added. We now have 4 years of regional pastors' seminar curriculum developed and being implemented in all the 9 geographical regions of the Good Shepherd Community Church. We're in the first phase of church building construction for 100 of our largest congregations. Above all, of course, many people are coming to know Christ personally. Binky, a 24-year-old woman from the Punjab, was married to an abusive alcoholic as a teenager, and her husband abandoned her and their infant son to run away with Binky's own sister. She returned to live with her mother, and she was a shattered woman without hope. A Good Shepherd Community Church planting team offered her hope in Christ. She said, "I believed that there is no one who will stand by me and care for me. I had no hope. But now I know that God is there to help me. I'm going to surrender my life to him and no longer worry about my future or my son's future. She and her family now attend one of the many Good Shepherd community churches in the Punjab state. You need to pray, please, for our churches and our teams who still operate with enthusiasm in the midst of all the threats and the persecution in the nation of India. Another key focus area for us is relief and development. You probably heard about the floods in Bangladesh at the end of July. A river burst its banks, flooded a huge area of low-lying land in that country. We made an immediate flood relief project, and the response was incredibly generous. Thank you to those who did respond. We were able to give help and hope to 4,850 families who'd been devastated by the flood. We're now in the second stage of that help. Rice seed is being provided to farmers, and in the third stage there'll be rehabilitation for those who've lost or had their homes very badly damaged. One of our workers describes a day in that relief effort. Leaving behind the major rivers and smaller tributaries, our boats started to cross the rice fields and roads. The entire area was submerged in water. We followed the line of electrical wires for over 40 minutes until we reached our relief distribution centre, a local high school. Like any surviving farms in this area, the school was an island in a vast expanse of water. It's easy to reduce disasters to statistics, but over 1/3 of the country is submerged. Over 5 million are rendered homeless. 1.5 million acres of crops have been destroyed. But the true measure of the damage is to look into these people's faces and see the pain. However, the true measure of our relief work is also found there. For as they left carrying their food, they were grateful for all that we were able to do. And we are grateful to God, says this relief worker, for his generous people across the world and for the opportunity to bring a little hope into this destitute situation. Now, when you're thinking of relief and development and lack of key personnel, you might think of people who are willing to go and take this aid on that boat down the tributaries in Bangladesh. And sometimes we do need people like that, but actually the key people we need right now, if we're going to maintain these relief and development efforts, are people like bookkeepers, computer workers, and so on in some of our headquarter offices. That's the great need. And actually, as I get reports from around the OM world, over and over again I hear that's the great need. Right here in Carlisle, where we have the international office of OM, that's our great need. We need people who will come and do some programming for us. We need secretaries. We need people to help with accounts and so on. Maybe that God has given you gifts you never thought would be used in the work of world mission. It's amazing the skills, the experience that God can use, sometimes in very practical areas that you wouldn't normally link with mission work. If you've got some of those skills, drop me a line, peter.maiden@om.org. I'd love to talk to you about such opportunities. Well, that's just a little bit of what's been happening in OM and what will be happening in the weeks to come. I'll be talking to you again in a month, but thank you very much for your prayers and all your support. You're the very backbone of our ministry worldwide through Operation Mobilization. Thank you very much indeed.